It was a cave in the side of the hill next to an inn. We went in there and it was full of animals. Not the cleanest stable I had seen, that's for sure. But there was a trough of water. There was a manger of hay. I knew what to do with that. But Joseph didn't seem to know what to do. But it didn't really matter. Mary found a pile of straw, lay down, and then the groaning and the screaming and the crying and the sweat of birth began. Birthing is an animal thing, you know? It brings you down to what's real. It's hard. It's a struggle. It's painful. You feel powerless. You have no control over what's going on. And then what comes forth is so vulnerable and wet and helpless and wobbly and powerless. It's the amazing thing that we survive. Well, Mary and Joseph knew what birth was about in that moment in that stable, as her eyes filled with terror as the pain came faster than she could keep up. And Joseph fumbling in the dark, finding a lamp and lighting it, and not knowing whether to be up or down or up or down. You humans don't like birth because it makes you feel so powerless and so vulnerable. It's so hard. I've seen how you dress up in your fine clothes and walk around with your noses in the air and act like you know what's going on and being in control of everything, but birth reminds us that underneath our clothes and our houses and your armor and your props, you're just a naked little creature like everybody else who someday is going to die. And the animals know that thing that you don't like to remember. But we're all born in this world, and one day we'll be released from this world. Well, Mary and Joseph got their taste of birth all right. They'd taken away all their pride, their pretense of thinking they knew what was going on and what was going to happen. Mary fed her baby same way my mother fed me when I was newborn, and wrapped him in some cloths she found, and laid him in the same manger bed that I had eaten out of when we first got into the cave. It was a very lonely feeling. Nobody there but the goats and the sheep and a cow and a horse and some chickens. I think they felt very alone. But not for long. Pretty soon the inn got a little, the stable got a little more crowded. Some two-leggeds who spend their lives living out with the sheep came in and started talking in excited voices about how angels had been singing to them out in the fields with the sheep and telling them that a Savior baby was born to them that night, and they could find it and see for themselves and find it in a manger. There he was, the Son of God, the Savior, in a manger. They tried to figure it out together. How could God, who had promised to save the people, come in such a way? If he was going to save them from their oppressors who made them feel all weak and powerless and vulnerable and burdened, how was it that he was born into the dirty straw of a stable, in a place that was full of powerlessness and vulnerability and burdens and fear? What kind of baby was this, and who would he grow into? What did God have in mind? Well, My donkey brain doesn't think about two-legged things like that. But if this was God's Son coming into the world with us animals, and like an animal, I began to get a warm feeling inside. I began to feel a little dancing. I began to feel peaceful and alive and real again a little bit. I didn't know exactly why. I went over to the manger that I'd eaten out of and saw this little man-child lying there. And in the dim light of the lamp, our eyes met. We looked into each other's eyes. And those eyes, I'd never seen such clear, deep eyes looking into me before. I went over and melted his little body a little bit. He laughed. A little man-child laughed at me. And we looked at each other again. My feet felt all live and tingly, and I kind of danced back to where I'd been. Did you see that? Those shepherd people and Mary and Joseph said to each other, did you see that? Looking at me and looking at the baby and looking at each other. Who is this child that God has sent us? I saw in the little glow of the lamplight that their eyes were starting to light up too. I think they were starting to feel a little free, a little more real. Their burdens seemed to be lifting. That's why God gave me speech, to come and tell you what I saw. And that's, what is that noise? Is that a chicken? Makes you feel kind of dancy, doesn't it? I like that. I like that. Oh, I do not understand the things of this two-legged world. Well, what I saw was God coming into this world and into our lives in that dirty stable, in that straw, like us, vulnerable and weak, exposed to dangers, being born to die. And yet in that baby, there was the message. There was the message. No matter who you are, and how many legs you have, and where you find yourself, and what your burdens are, you aren't alone. We're not alone. God is with us, as one of us. Every time I felt weighed down by my burdens, I remembered the look of that man-child. Oh, yes. Life is hard. And sometimes our burdens are heavy. But we're not alone. We're not alone. It's all good. We're not alone. It's all good. Hee-haw! Hee-haw!